The first thing, though, that I want to say is the Cash Now campaigns that we're going to talk about over the next couple of days. These are campaigns that Nick has personally taught to me, and I have executed on a regular basis over the last several years. Okay. I've executed these over and over again. You will actually, as you see them, you will probably recognize them because I've worked them into all of my pieces of my marketing, from my content pieces to my email pieces to my messenger conversation pieces. And I just want to say here, right, that these have worked for me, and I hope that they will work for you too. Obviously, disclaimer, we cannot guarantee because we are not on the other end of the screen executing it for you guys, right? I just had Onik in for the FTC training. So, that's where this disclaimer is coming from. By the way, if you have not watched that training, I highly recommend it. It is for free on my YouTube channel, because any of these campaigns that we are going to be talking about today, they have to fall within the rules, right? No one wants to break any type of rules. We don't want to make any false claims or anything like that. And so we just want to make sure that everyone here will be, following guidelines and all of that fun stuff. And we'll be as we're going through these campaigns, we'll make sure that, like I said, everyone is taken care of. Let's see. Let me unmute Nick again. I accidentally muted him. Let's see. There you go, Nick. Sorry about that.
Hey. All right.
Anything that you want to add to before we get started?
I'll just and first of all, as Laurel said, I'm on mobile waiting for my internet to start working again, so I apologize. Second, just think of we have 3 days together, today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And what's going to happen is a progression. Okay, so today it'll be a little bit more conceptual, but this is the nuance. This is the nuance that makes it so effective and sustainable. So you're going to learn the Cash Now campaigns, how I like to run them, how Laurel has tweaked some of them to fit her like disposition and medium, which obviously is video and heavy on Facebook and YouTube. Uh, so I encourage you to do the work. It's really easy, and Laurel's great at this. And it's what we built the arena for. It's really easy to come to these workshops, think that you have learned a bunch of stuff, not apply any of it, and then wonder why you spend so much time investing in yourself and learning, and things aren't getting better for you. So that's the one thing that I want to start with is the rest of this morning, tomorrow morning, and Wednesday morning, approach it with the intent of implementing. And I think the way it's structured, you'll have homework. And if you do the homework, just doing the homework, you should be able to experience some of the benefits of some of these campaigns.
Yep, absolutely. And so the first thing that I want to make sure that we understand, because this is something I always tell my Lean on Laurel students, every single week, we need to be sitting down and we need to look at who are our 10 warmest leads, who are our 10 hottest leads. Like, we need to be able to identify them, right? Like, if I go to Jean-Michel and I'm like, Jean-Michel, who are your 10 hottest leads right now that you've talked to? And he says, I don't know. I'm going to slap him outside the face and I'll be like, dude, what the hell, right? No, I'm just kidding. I love Jean-Michel dearly. He's in LOL, so I can pick on him a little bit. But he's one of those people that talks to his leads on a consistent basis. And so this is one of the biggest changes that I feel has really happened in the marketing space, is that we've kind of gone from talking to people to automating the process of talking to people. And I think now there's so many people now who are craving those conversations, right? And so today we're going to be laying down all of the foundations that you guys need to understand in order to make this strategy work, because I feel like there's this sense that everyone needs the field to automate everything, right? And I'll just say something that I was listening to a recent talk that was filmed at a mastermind that someone gave me access to. And the guru that actually said this, I had to take a pause. And even myself was like, ah, that makes so much sense. And he was like saying that whenever you are making your first 50 to 100,000 a month, right? We're talking a month, that you should be the person in the seat that's still having the conversations, because I think oftentimes we want to hand it over to a chat bot, or we want to hand it over to a sales team, right? Also, I think there's some misconceptions that when people do the messenger strategy, or they do, my conversations to cash kind of strategy, they always ask me, well, Laurel, why am I doing this when I can get an email address for, X amount of dollars, right? Here's the thing. If we don't know how to have conversations, do you think that that email address is going to be any valuable to you? Like, probably not, right? If you don't know how to have a conversation. Yeah, you get the dopamine hit of, oh, I've got this email address, right? But if we don't know how to have those conversations, it's probably not going to be that any more valuable than a one-on-one conversation in Messenger. I love having conversations in Messenger, but here's the thing. Email could be a very powerful tool if you know how to use it correctly, right? And this is a conversation, total transparency. Yesterday, I asked Nick a question and I said, hey, Nick, why can't we do this? And he's like, dude, we're going to blow our allegiance capital if we do it that way. And I was like, ah. And allegiance capital is something that you build up over time by being clear on what you have to offer, but also by continuously showing up with value, right? And so we have to remember that. Like if you have a email list that is sitting there dormant, it's not engaged, everything that you're going to learn over these next 3 days is going to help you re-engage it in the right way. If you're sitting here and your messenger conversations aren't going as planned, what you're going to learn over the next 3 days is going to help you fix that. If you are getting ghosted by your leads after you initiate a conversation, what you're going to learn over the next 3 days is going to actually help that too, right? So I'm going to go ahead and get started because, but keep that in mind. We should always know who are our 10 warmest leads, who are our 10 hottest leads, and we should always be bringing in at least 10 new leads a week. And whether that is by direct outreach, whether that is by Facebook ads, whether that is, by just putting out content, creating 2 steps, but we should always be adding 10 leads into our list. And this could be the invisible list. This could be your physical list. This could be your friends list on Facebook. And so I just want to make sure that everyone knows that that is like the foundation of making any strategy work, really, right? Because if you need cash flow, right? Everyone I think in the room needs cash flow, right? Otherwise you guys wouldn't be sitting here. You need to figure out how to make these conversations happen. If not, what are you doing with the rest of your day? Right? If you need cash flow, you need to be doing your cash flow activities, which is trying to figure out how to have conversations. Now, what do we do? How do we segment these audiences, right? To know, okay, who should I send this campaign to? Who should I send this campaign to, right? Because there's going to be different audiences that we're going to send those 6 campaigns to. And so I'm going to pull this up. This is something that Nick taught me early on, and it is about filling out your buckets. So I'm going to let Nick teach this because he teaches it so much better than I do.
Well, I appreciate that. Okay. So you see on the screen, and again, I'm working from my phone, so I got a little tiny screen here. Good fit now, good fit later, not a good fit. And you'll I'm sure many of you are familiar with the pipelines, especially if you've done a lot of sales. And this is a simplified version. So when you have a pipeline, you're basically just pushing leads through. What we're doing when we want to set up our Cash Now campaigns is go a little bit deeper. And we could take everybody that we've talked to. Let me back up. So if you're here or you're watching the recording, and you got a Word or Google Doc or a pen and paper in front of you, I would write down or keep top of mind what is, think of the one step that if more people took that step, you would make more money. Now, what I mean by that is obviously I understand that the answer, the first answer is always, well, if more people bought my thing. But micro steps, which I talk about and Laurel talks about, is there a step before they buy your thing? Is it a phone call? Is it watch a training? Is it a freemium product? Like, what is the mechanism that you want more people to take action on? Okay, so let's assume that it is to respond to a conversation or maybe schedule a call. Maybe you have a lot of people scheduling a call, but not as many showing up. So then the action would be get people to show up. Okay, so that's the first one is we got to take this leap from, man, I really wish strangers would buy my stuff, which, yeah, cool, me too. But we want to think, all right, how are people going to buy my stuff? Well, on a sales call. Okay, so how do I get more sales call? More messenger conversations. Okay, how do I get more messenger conversations? You want to back into whichever you believe, and we can help you go through the data to figure out the biggest constraint. All right, so let's assume that you're having a whole bunch of phone calls and you don't have as many people enrolling as you expect or want. So you get messenger conversations, you get them on the phone, and they're just not enrolling at the percentage you want them to enroll as fast as you want them to. So when you make these buckets, you're thinking specifically about that one step, and you do this for each step. But if you just think about what is the one constraint, what is the one thing that if I solve this would have the biggest impact on my cash flow the fastest. So let's assume you're having phone calls and they're just not enrolling, and maybe you're getting a whole bunch of, let me think about it, come back to me next week. I don't know, I got to talk to somebody, all the objections. So if we're thinking about that step, we would say, based on what we know, not what the prospect knows, but what we know, these are the people that are good fits right now. I know it. They got enough revenue. They're hardworking. They're smart. If they just enrolled in this program, I know they would get results. So you want to just put them in this bucket, good fit now. And we'll tell you what to do with that later. Then you go, okay, here are the people I talked to, and I think they'd be a really good fit in a couple months. They got some stuff they got to work out. Maybe they're just getting started. They don't quite have the cash flow to afford me, but they will soon. We put them a good fit later. And if you're a detail person, you might want to make notes as to why they're a good fit later. And then the last bucket's not a good fit. Their disposition, their personality doesn't jive with me. They're a pain in the ass. They don't have, if you sell B2B and they don't have a business, those all go in the not a good fit. And I'll give you a high level overview. Generally speaking, the Cash Now campaigns are going to convert to good fit nows at each step. And if you get really good at this, you'll have 5 or 6 or 7 steps. So you'll get more prospects you'll get more good fit prospects to start converting into messenger conversations. You'll get more good fit messenger conversations to convert to phone calls, and you'll get more good fit phone calls. If phone sales is part of your process, you'll get more good fit phone calls to buy faster. The good fit laters, those are the standard indoctrination and nurturing. Like the good fit laters, there's some tactics and tricks we could show you. Not a good fit. That's Laurel actually does this really well. Not a good fits. If we've determined they're not a good fit, we never want to put any pressure on them to buy anything. And so it's really helpful to know we can just put out goodwill. We just send them stuff that makes them feel good because they'll share it with their friends and boost our engagement and all that stuff. So first step is one, what is the single step? It's going to be hard. Your brain is going to try to take 5 steps at once. Like, how do I get, again, more strangers to buy my thing? Well, there's a bunch of steps they have to take. Which one step uh, will lead to, if you figured it out, if you increase the conversion, would lead to the most amount of cash the fastest? And then two, you want to go through your good fit nows, good fit laters, not a good fits. There's a couple ways to do this. We have a concept called the rearview mirror. I would look at all my prospects that I've talked to, or that I've had a dialogue with, or I know enough about. I'd be like, man, yep, that's a good fit now. I really feel like this person would benefit greatly the sooner they enrolled. Uh, so I would go back to your last however many prospects you're willing to go back and bucket them. And as you bucket them, start to look for the characteristics that make you think they're going to be a good fit. So there's some people that will build the characteristics first. Some people, you just look, you're like, man, I know this person would be a great fit. So you got to think, okay, why would they be a good fit? And you can start kind of building out your criteria. So one, identify the step, and we'll give you some examples, and we'll build these out with you over the next couple of days. Two, good fit now, good fit later, not a good fit. You want to make those buckets. And then three, which we'll get into in just a second, is we'll show you how to make what we call natural deadlines. And natural deadlines and rhythms are the things that will convert people. It'll get people to take action faster in a way that they understand and feel really good about. So hopefully that made sense.
Yeah. And I just want to also point out too, guys, that there is a strategy that I've been using that I actually got from these same campaigns on how to turn those not a good fits into good fits. So if you think that, oh, well, we're not going to do anything with the not a good fits, we're actually going to go through how to actually turn those not a good fits into good fits.
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the most really problematic, insidious issue with internet marketing. The way that it's taught is it's kind of a buy or die, which is like they just push them through a funnel and like, oh, it's a numbers game. If that person doesn't buy, go on to the next one. And it's incredibly wasteful and not super efficient especially when you're paying for those leads. So to Laurel's point, we'll show you how to turn all those people that said no, or all those people that you go, oh yeah, this person doesn't, I don't jive with them. A percentage of them just need to be communicated with a certain way, and they turn into a good fit now. And so you'll maximize both your ad spend and your time spent in conversations. So it's an important bucket. All right. Laurel, anything to add about those buckets?
I think just they're gonna hear me say this throughout the entire training, that this stuff sounds like, I know the first time Nick told me this, I was like, well, no, duh. Right? Like this kind of like, it's one of those principles where you're like, of course I should be doing this, but are we doing it? No. Because we think it's too easy. We think this is too front facing, right? Oh, of course, like good fit now, good fit later, not a good fit. But here's the thing. So many people neglect to actually do this, and they go after the good fit nows, right? The internet marketers, the people who are spending a shit ton of money on ads. And I will say this, the reason that I have been able to create the business that I have and have only spent under $150,000 in ads is because I focused on the not a good fit. And so I just want to like just keep that in mind as we're going through all of this, because I think this is one of those exercises where you hear it from a coach and then you just kind of like roll your eyes and you're like, oh, this isn't anything I haven't heard before. Right. Because I know what some of you guys are thinking. But if you just sit down and do this, not just once, this week as you're going through this, but if you consistently do this, this is one of those things. And actually, I was telling Nick about this. This is my biggest struggle, is doing the mundane, because I've been doing this for 6 years. But it's the mundane tasks like this that have allowed me to scale as much as I have on as little ad spend as I've spent. So just wanted to add that before going into the next section.
Perfect. Yeah, and it is very, very simple, very basic, but you guys will see as we layer on these campaigns why these buckets are so important. All right, so after buckets, and we'll circle back around. So I'm going to kind of fire hose to the face. After the buckets, which I strongly recommend you take the time to do. There's for those of you that are familiar with Robert Cialdini, he wrote the book Influence. And this is the most important part. This is like the most important little tiny nuance part of this whole Cash Now campaign thing. Is we've all seen the fake countdown timers in a funnel where it's like, you got 4 minutes in this countdown. And by now we all know that those are mostly fake countdowns, so they're not super effective. However, having a deadline, it does move people. It causes people to take action. And when people take action, we want to do it. We want it to be smooth and with as little buyer's remorse as possible. So the natural deadlines takes the concept that Robert Cialdini talks about in both Influence and Persuasion. And it's really, really simple. And I strongly recommend picking up those books, by the way. They went as part of their research and they found lines. How do I figure out which one? We'll walk through all that. So they found lines, like people waiting in line to use a printer, like a copy machine or a coffee or whatever. And they went and said, hey, look, do you mind if I cut in line? And they did this thousands of times. And most people said no, or like, yes, I do mind. You can't cut in line. So then they said, hey, but what happens if we say, hey, can I cut in line because there's a really good reason why? So can I cut in line because my dogs are locked in the car? Can I cut in line because my grandma is sick and I got to get to the hospital? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, when they added because good reason, exponentially more people said yes. Like an overwhelming number of people said, yeah, sure. You can cut in line. That makes sense. And then somebody had the idea to try the same thing with a little bit of a spin. They went and they gave really bad reasons. Hey, can I cut in line because I want to? Hey, can I cut in line because I want to be in front of the line? Like, not good reasons. And surprisingly, the same number of people said yes, as if there was a good reason. And the deduction is that the human brain is lazy. And when you give somebody a good reason, they're more likely to do whatever you request of them. One step further, even if it's not a good reason, if you just give them a reason, they're more likely to take the next step. So they literally had more people say yes to, can I cut in line because I want to, than if they just wanted to cut in line. Almost the same amount of people that would let you cut if you had a really good urgent reason. So the key with the natural deadlines is we are finding as many ways as possible to utilize that power of because, right? Using pre-wired ideas, meaning things that are outside of our control. And it's really important that these things are outside of our control, because if they're inside our control, if we have control over them, we lose trust with our audience. So if I say, hey, Laurel, you want to come to my birthday? It's tomorrow. We all understand that I only have one birthday a year. Right? If I say, hey, you want to sign up for my digital course? The deadline is tomorrow. on some level, Laurel probably understands that I could still give her access in 2 days. So we want to find pre-wired things like a birthday, holidays, things like that, that we do not have control over, but we can still utilize the power of because. We could still give people a compelling reason, which we see versions of all the time. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we got our buckets and our natural deadlines. Now, with the natural deadlines, I'm going to give you some examples really quick. And we're going to actually build out some campaigns for some of our companies and let you guys watch over the shoulder, so you'll see how we come up with our natural deadlines. So there's 4 rhythms. I'm going to, again, fire hose through this because if I was at my computer, I'd share my screen with you guys and walk through it. You got 4 rhythms. And I know it's a lot, but I promise it'll make you a ton of money. The first rhythm is we'll call it a natural pre-wired idea rhythm. Christmas, New Year's. So if you're in fitness, you can use New Year's as a really, you know what I mean, or accounting. Here's the things you got to do before the new year to have less tax burden. So those are like those are pre-wired ideas. It's things that even if you don't celebrate Christmas, it's on December 25th. Even if you don't celebrate Halloween, it's at the end of October. And so we can utilize these. So the first thing is I would write down, you can even pull up a holiday calendar, because remember the research on the word because. It doesn't have to be a good reason. It could be National Hot Dog Day. You could say, it's National Hot Dog Day. I love hot dogs. Therefore, you should buy my shit. And it'll work better than you think. So first rhythm is you want to make a list of all of the possible reasons that most of your audience already has all the context for. Right? So you don't have to educate them on what Christmas is. They already know. So that's the first bucket, and we'll walk you through this. Make a list of all of the deadlines. Look at your own calendar. You can pull up a calendar of random holidays. That's just the first rhythm. That's just like the universal rhythm. All humans are kind of on this same New Year's, Christmas, Thanksgiving, et cetera, et cetera. The second rhythm is your industry rhythm. So if you're an e-com, Black Friday is probably a big deal for you. If you are in fitness, again, you're going to have New Year's. If you are in tax planning or accounting, you're going to have the tax deadline. So these are the things that are unique to your industry. And you could probably pull up, if you've been in business for more than a couple of years, you could probably pull up 3, 4, 5 years of your P&L. And if you threw it into a graph or a chart, you would probably see your industry rhythms in there. Like if you're a gym owner, you're going to see New Year's, your membership skyrockets every year. Right? If you are in, accounting firms, you get the huge spike, right? But once everybody realizes they're going to be late for tax season. So every industry has its rhythms. You want to identify them. Okay. Third bucket is your business rhythms. These are rhythms that exist because of the way that you have chosen to do business. Okay, so for example, some people may prefer to collect a year of payment upfront. Some people may prefer the monthly recurring revenue. Either way, I'll give you an example. In the gym business, if you run a New Year special and you collect all the money up front, versus if you run a New Year special and you get everybody on monthly recurring, you're obviously going to have, it has different cash flow implications, right? In one scenario, you have way more cash up front, but if you're not careful, you'll run out of cash by the end of the year. In the other scenario, you have monthly recurring, but you might have attrition. And so these rhythms are the rhythms that exist because of the way you're choosing to do business. You have control over them. Again, we'll give you examples. The last one is your personal rhythms. This is your birthday is a personal rhythm. Everybody has these rhythms where I know somebody who studied their own personal rhythms and realized they banned themselves from making any decisions in January, because they've made a lot of really bad decisions in January, probably because they're due to the some of the way they make their business decisions. Okay, so those are the 4 buckets. What are all of the deadlines that like the whole world basically knows? Then what are all of the deadlines that are unique to my industry? Then what are all of the deadlines due to the way that I do business? So Laurel and I have this workshop, for example. The way we chose to do this workshop, it's 3 days live. It starts on this day, it ends on this day, and there's replays. We could have done no replays. Those are all business rhythms. So that means we could change the way that we do it if we want to. Okay. And then your personal rhythms. You just recognize Laurel has a home, has 2 homes that she splits time between. She does, Laurel, how often do you do your in-person events?
Once quarterly.
Okay, so once a quarter in New Orleans? Or
We bounce back from Biloxi to New Orleans every other quarter.
okay, so see, that's a personal rhythm. That's something that she decided, I'm going to do it quarterly. I'm going to change the so it requires a little bit more education than Black Friday does. All right, so that's the you want to make your buckets and then dial in your list of natural deadlines and ideally map them to those 4 rhythms. Laurel, anything you want to add or anything anybody else needs clarity on?
Yeah. So one of the biggest changes that I recently made this year in 2024 was based on a personal rhythm. I took the Lean on Laurel program from a group program that was continuously done over Zoom coaching calls to a one-on-one program utilizing Voxer because I learned my own personal rhythms. And I found that whenever I would do Zoom coaching calls, I did not perform at the times that I do better whenever I'm on Voxer one-on-one. So I kind of want you guys to understand why identifying these personal rhythms actually makes a huge difference. Why? Because then whenever I did the Cash Now campaign, which by the way, you guys are going to learn here, I was able to instantly enroll people based upon the change that I made, right? I gave a reason as to why I changed the program and why it is the way that it is now. Does that make sense? So that's why it's super important to be able to identify all of these personal rhythms because it helps whenever you are positioning why you're making a change to something, why you're increasing the price, or why you're actually doing something. Again, this workshop, the Blitz, is actually a result of me identifying another personal rhythm that anytime I need to make new content, if I'm left to my own devices, I am not going to pre-record anything. I'm going to sit in my office and twiddle my thumbs and not do it. This is a forcing function built upon a personal rhythm that I am able to identify, and then boom, it makes cash flow because of that. So that's why it's super important to identify all of these personal rhythms because they are cash flow opportunities that are literally just sitting there.
All right. Every time I mute myself, Laurel has to unmute me. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. We're starting today a little bit. I don't want to say slow because this is foundational stuff. So let's give real quick some examples of a pre-wired. This one's the easiest one. And so Laurel and I are going to build campaigns for the Success Circle, the Arena, and for Lean on Laurel. So we say, what are the pre-wired natural deadlines? And I always start with the obvious ones, which is Christmas, New Year's. Laurel, what else do we want to Black Friday,
I'm trying.
Valentine's?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like all of the deadlines that we hit other than our birthdays for Success Finder Success Circle this past year. But I think Christmas and Nixmas was kind of the big ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Nixmas is a combination of personal and pre-wired because my birthday is so close to Christmas that I can anytime I did the 12 days of Nixmas, and that immediately makes sense to people because the 12 days of Christmas is already a pre-wired concept. Yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I have a client right now that is basing her like entire quarter Q4 campaign. She's actually a relationship coach, and she's literally making, hey, the holidays are coming up and you want your family to be together for the holidays. And so that's so see how like just kind of like recognizing these deadlines you can actually build an entire campaign around.
Yeah. And let me touch on this too, is these Cash Now campaigns you can run mostly year round, but I encourage you to think of them as ace cards you keep in your back pocket, meaning if Christmas rolls around and you got a campaign planned out and you don't need the cash because you're just rolling in cash, which would, good for you. I probably wouldn't run the campaign the way that, if anything, I would just do free giveaways and stuff. So just think of these as ace cards that you can pull, and you actually want to pull them as infrequently as possible. If you need cash now, then use them.
Yeah, because
So
then people will start to expect it, right? And so that's the important part of this entire piece, and that's why they're called Cash Now campaigns. My client's not going to run this every Christmas, but she needs cash flow right now, right? So keep that in mind as we're doing this. This is not something that's going to become a yearly thing. Like this is something that because if people expect it and they know, they're just going to wait.
mm-hmm. Yeah, all right. So and I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat as well, so you guys can let me know if you have any that pop in because we can crowdsource this. So we have our pre-wired ideas. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I can Google it. But then we have, all right, let's look at industry rhythms. So if we think of uh, industry rhythms for you, Laurel, we're going to go, what is something that is happening? It's either a rhythm or a deadline in the industry that you teach, Facebook advertising and video.
Mm-hmm.
And here's one that pops into mind. They're about to do that whole pixel cookie,
Yeah,
doomsday.
the next pixel apocalypse is coming. Yep. It's a huge
Yeah.
one.
So hopefully you guys can see if you're watching that's unique to somebody that teaches advertising. It's an industry rhythm, but we also know that every couple of years this is going to happen. Right? They're going to tighten up on privacy and tracking and data sharing and audience building and all that. So industry for that. Okay, now let's think about the success circle. Industry deadline specific for the success circle. The Corporate Transparency Act. Yeah, that's another one. So you see how those are things that if you're thinking, what are the things that me and my partners need to know that my clients also need to know that are unique to my industry, and to make that list. Okay. Now, business. This is an interesting one. Let's look at our business rhythms. What are some of the unique business rhythms? We do one-off workshops. Right. So a one-off workshop. We have an in-person event coming up. Those are both very easy natural deadlines, especially an event, right? Because you're either here or you're not. There's no fake countdown timer. If you're not here on the 6th and the 7th, you can't come in on the 9th. So anything live is a really easy to understand business rhythm. What other business rhythms do we have? Laurel has lean on Laurel. I think most people pay for 3 months up front and then go to month after that. That's a business rhythm. So you're going to see if Laurel's needs to fill up lean on Laurel, she can speak to that business rhythm. Hey, look, I only take on a handful of people for 3 months at a time, and then it's month to month. And then we just have to figure out how to turn that into a because statement, which is what we'll teach you the next 2 days. And then personal rhythms, that would be like, hey, I take 1 month hiatus every year, which means I'm going to start that 1 month hiatus on this date. So that means this date is the last day to sign up because I'll be on hiatus after that. So those are personal rhythms, and those are the lists that we want to make to lay the foundation for these Cash Now campaigns over the next couple of days. Reading through the chats here. I see Unshackled Career Woman. I just fed Chat GPT this industry rhythm, Black Friday for e-commerce, tax sale for CPAs, give me the rhythm for my industry. Chat GPT.
Oh,
Man, doing this from the phone is funky.
I know. I hate Zoom. I hate doing Zoom on my phone. I always mute myself too.
So you want to make as many as possible. I saw that somebody used ChatGPT, and that's great, but this list should be obnoxiously long. Like everything you could think of, you have to use them all. But you want to stretch your brain listing out all of these natural deadlines.
Can we go over some more um personal rhythms?
Yeah. I mean
That's always something that and see guys, this is why I go to Nick because Nick is awesome at this. Like that's I think that's probably the one out of all of the four of these that I have the hardest time with.
yeah, and you've done a great job because everybody here, I think most people here know uh about your bumpers, like you don't work after 2 p.m. or whatever time, right? That's a personal rhythm. And you could use that. Hey, look, we're doing this workshop and there'll be replays. Uh, and you got to be here because, as you know, I only work 2 or 3 days a week, X amount of hours a day. And so this is the one time I'm going to go beyond that to help as many people as possible. So that's your personal rhythms, your personal bumpers or decisions. And all we're doing is we're articulating it in a way that there's we're turning it into a compelling reason for people to take action now without all of the pushy internet marketing, big promises, yada, yada, yada. So you could think about your birthday. You could think about your spouse's birthday. You could think about your kids' birthdays. You could think about your kids' graduations. Maybe you're still in school and you're graduating. Anything that is important to you as an individual. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Scott. Shout out to Scott Perry.
Oh, look at that. So personal deadlines is anything, if you look at your weird like idiosyncrasies, right? Like the things that are Laurel works very few hours relative to most people in her space. That's unique to her. She's got her beach houses very much, and her whole disposition is just very much Laurel. All of those things can be turned into personal rhythm deadlines. It's like, every day, just a goofy example, you can say every day at 2 p.m., I jump in the pool, and that signals my body to my body, hey, you're done working for the day, so I can relax and I can get into my creative space. So you have until 2 p.m. today to do XYZ, and then I'm jumping in the pool and F you. I'm not responding to you after 2 p.m. today. That's a natural deadline built on your personal rhythm.
Mm, so good. That's a
Right.
good.
And
For some reason, the way that you said it that time hit me more so than any other time that I've heard you teach that.
well, repeat exposure, you know, we're
It's
all,
kind of it's kind of like why we have this everyone's always like, Laurel, why do we have these workshops at freaking 8 a.m. in the morning? It's like 6 a.m. in California. And I'm like, well, that's because I'm better in the morning than I am later in the day.
yeah. And so if they binge watch your stuff or they think you might have answers and you say, hey, you got to come here at this time because this is where I show up best, that is a personal rhythm, but it is a compelling reason for them to do what they may not want to do right now.
Hmm.
And you're utilizing the because. You didn't just say show up at 6 or fuck off. You should show up at 6 because that's when I'm at my best. And that little because triggers something in the prospect's brain that says, okay, so it's not just made up. And then the next question is, uh, does the because, like, is the reason feasible? It doesn't have to be good. It just has to be feasible. So if you say, buy this course for $1,000 today, otherwise you pay twice as much tomorrow. It's kind of like, why would you charge me? There's no reason why. Doesn't have to be a good reason. There's just no reason why. And people won't buy if their brains don't think there's a good reason why. So we're just saying, here's a weird, personal, unique thing about me. And that means that you need to buy today because benefit of unique reason. Uh, that tells our brain, the prospect's brain, okay, cool. They have a reason. And the more of the personal brand that you have, this is the hardest part probably, is the more people will buy from your personal rhythms. Like, cool, Laurel's jumps in the pool every day at 2. Like, I better buy this thing. Doesn't have to make sense. So yeah, personal rhythms, that's a big one. And it's generally, you have two schools of people. You have people that only talk about themselves, but then you have people like Laurel and probably everybody here that does not talk about themselves enough. And you might talk about what you do and how you can help people, what problem you solve, but it's actually if you have a personal brand, it's the weird things that you do and the way that you build your life that creates a strong affinity. Like the people, I'm more likely, and let me know in the chat if you experience this, or maybe you experience the opposite. I'm more likely if Laurel says, hey, do this because reason that's unique to Laurel. I like watching Laurel stuff. I support her. So that's actually the strongest deadline for your biggest fans. Right. Because they care about your personal life. They're like somewhat engaged with your personal life. So the personal deadlines can be some of the most powerful ones.
Stefan in chat has a really great question. I'm in the tax business, but for my ideal clients, the deadline is not April 15th because to mitigate our clients' capital gains taxes, we have to get their tax structure set up before they sell their property of investments. Would that be a business rhythm?
That is a business rhythm, and what we would use, and you'll learn. I'll give you an example, but you'll actually learn it tomorrow or the next day. You would learn it's a business rhythm, but so what we're using is we're using the tax deadline as that's the main rhythm. That is the industry rhythm. But your business rhythm is, I know a lot of you are going to wait till the 15th, but you know what we're doing with my clients? We start preparing them tomorrow. So let's say it's like, I don't know, January when you send this out. So you're saying, I'm aware that there's an industry rhythm, and what I do for my clients, or what we recommend, is that you start working on this thing right now ahead of time, because that's what we do. And the reason we start now is so that we have time to get the maximum benefit, because this shit takes time. And so what you're doing is you're saying, okay, we're recognizing this industry deadline, but my business decision is to prepare for this thing way ahead of time, and here's why. Right. And what you're doing is the B message. Well, what we hope is the thought is, I would frame it as, hey, I know that the tax deadline is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months away, however long, you know better than I do. Uh, and what we're doing is we just took all of our private clients and we started this process today, 2 months early, because that's how we do business. The right people are going to go, shit, I wish I was a client of yours. And we're putting out goodwill. We're telling them something that nobody else is telling them at a time when nobody else is telling them that. But again, it's not made up, because the tax deadline exists. It's real. So it's not a fake. I guess what I'm saying, it's not a fake countdown. It's your expertise is saying, yes, the tax deadline is on the 15th. However, because I'm an expert, I know that you have to start way back here to get everything done to get the maximum benefit by the 15th. And we'll help you build out some campaigns over the next couple of days. But hopefully that made sense. Is you can take industry deadlines, you can take any deadlines. And if I was a nutrition coach, I might say, all right, Christmas, I know it's 2 months away. But if you don't develop the skill of learning, moderation, control, whatever you teach, now you will not be able to learn it in the middle of holiday season. Right. So I'm using holidays as a natural deadline. But given my expertise, maybe I know that you got to start 3 months ahead of time to develop the habits to carry you through it. So step one is the deadlines. And then step two is what we just talked about, is we start backing into, like, if you wait till Black Friday to talk about your Black Friday thing, you get buried in everybody else's Black Friday things. But if you could prepare people, hey, look, on Black Friday, I was going to do this, but I realized if I sold this service on Black Friday, it would be doing a disservice. So I'm doing it 3 weeks early. See how we're using the natural deadline, but we're also injecting our own personal opinion into the whole campaign.
Clara has a really great question. How and guys, if you have any questions, like, this is the time. Like, we purposely left some time so that we could jam, because like I said, tomorrow we want to go, like, right into actually building out these campaigns. So we want to make sure you guys saw Scott's list a while ago, right? We want to make sure that everyone has all of these lists. So take advantage. So Clara just asked, how would it work with a membership that has ongoing enrollment? There you go.
All right. So ongoing enrollment. And again, we're slow rolling it today, because if throughout the course of the day you do not make your natural deadlines and start thinking about these buckets, the next couple days won't be as effective. So we'll go deeper into this. So how does it work with the membership? This step, today's homework, is exactly the same. I would list out the steps. So micro step, what is the process? So first Facebook ads, okay, then messenger conversation, then phone call. And if yours is different, same process, just write it out. And we say, all right, good fit now, good fit later, not a good fit. From messenger to phone call, and then from phone call to close, good fit now, good fit later, not a good fit. So first, I would just get clear on those steps. What are the steps that people need to take in order to enroll in your membership? And then list out your deadlines. Okay. List out your deadlines. If I had an ongoing membership, I might say, hey, look, my birthday is December 28th. That's Nick's right smack dab between Christmas and New Year's. And since on my actual birthday, I always do an event for my birthday and give a bunch of shit away. And last year and this year I'm doing it in person. So I would explain all that. I would say, and here's the deal: you got to RSVP so I know who's coming before December 1st, and it is only open to active members. So that would just be telling the story, right? But the B message is I better enroll in this membership before December 1st if I want to go to Nick's birthday party. So that's just using a personal deadline, giving them a compelling reason why without it being super obvious to them. And anybody that is thinks that'll be interesting, compelling, maybe has a little bit of FOMO, they're going to enroll before December 1st. So you can use natural deadline as if you're building a campaign to sell something, and then just give it away. I could say, hey, Laurel and I are doing a huge workshop, and it's only for active members of Lean on Laurel. And we'd want to probably tell why we're doing the workshop and what the deadline is, you know.
I
So that's
just
how I do it.
actually I just actually did one. Did you guys see it on my personal profile? I was like, "Hey, the FTC is cracking down on internet marketers." And so I'm opening up my membership. I mean, I know mine, I'm opening and closing it. I know yours is open enrollment, but just to kind of get some creative juices flowing, I made a post that said, "Hey, the FTC is cracking down." And because I want to make sure that my entire audience is prepared, I'm opening the doors to my $7 membership because I've got Onyx Singal coming in and teaching the FTC compliance training that he does for his private clients. And so I'm opening the doors um, exclusively for this. And so if you're not in, here's your chance.
Yeah. I can't look at the chat because it mutes me every time I look at the chat. So you got to
I
let me
got,
know if anything else comes in.
yeah, I got you. Mandy actually just asked a really great question. She said, "Can you talk about how you decided what's best with your own flow?" Mandy, can you give a little bit more context? Here, I'll actually, where are you? There you are. Let me unmute you. Can you give us a little context behind your question? Because I think this one's going to be a good one.
Hi, yeah. I think like as business owners, we just try to decide like what's best for our people, but also forget what's best for us. I love how we're having this conversation because I think it's something that's not talked about enough. I've personally been struggling a lot with like trying to figure out my best flow. And I've been hemming and hawing on making decisions because I want to best serve other people because my audience is mostly like 9 to 5 working people. But I don't perform well at 8 p.m. doing my lives, and I've been doing them for that long. So how do you come to the decision and pay attention to what are your flows, and how do you make decisions that serve the audience best in congruent with that, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I'll jump in. One, having Nick, honestly, like I've been working with him for the last, like, I want to say like 5.5 years now, having someone to kind of see from like a 30,000 foot view because sometimes we're too close to ourselves. And so I mean, the whole switch to Lean on Laurel, the way that I did it from Zoom coaching calls, because now, like, if I'm on a Zoom coaching call and it's just open Q&A, like it is my like kryptonite so bad. Like if I'm on a Zoom call and students are like, "Hey, can you help me write copy?" Do you think that that's like the best way that I could write copy is right then and there on the spot? Or do you think I can write the best copy floating around in my pool? Like, what do you think would, and so being able to identify that, I was easily able to say, okay, this structure of Lean on Laurel that I'm doing is not working for me, and it's not allowing me to be my best self for my students. And so I just always, anytime I'm having some ideas, I go to Nick and I'm just like, hey, like, help me figure this out because I am miserable. My students are frustrated. How do we fix all of this? Right. And so the way that I do it is I literally just talk to my students. Like, Tina and Dan always give me some really great feedback. Jean-Michel gives me feedback all the time. Like, hey, like, I think it would be better if you do it X, Y, and Z. And sometimes I'll be like, well, I do it because of this, right? I'll tell Jean-Michel, it's my personal rhythm. I have to do it this way. Otherwise I'm not going to get it done. But I think honestly, just it's kind of a combination of listening to what your clients need from you and being able to align it with what's best for you. That's the way that I always do it. And and I always just say this, you guys are probably tired of me saying it, just having conversations with our, our students or our leads or however, like, and just trying to create that best fit.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the if you can identify your personal rhythms, and it's always tougher when you're B2C and you're working with people that have 9 to 5s. But to Laurel's point, there's a serious, and this is kind of off topic, but there's a serious discussion to have with yourself, which is, I'm not great at showing up at 8 p.m., but that's the way that my clients are best served, or my prospects are best served. And I would challenge that to make sure it might be because more people show up at 8 p.m. And you can make that leap of logic that if more people show up, they're being better served, but it is a leap of logic. It's an assumption, right? So a lot of times, yeah, that's no reason I can't do recording. I would personally, if I were you, I would do it at a time where you show up best, and I would use that shift as a campaign. To Laurel's point, I would actually educate, this is why I'm doing it this way. You can tell them there'll be replays available and all that stuff. But generally speaking, I want to be very, very careful about, there's a few ways to win market share, to win eyeballs. One of them is being convenient, which I want to be very careful personally that convenience is not the thing I'm selling. It could be quality. It could be something unique. It could be that you're the only person on the planet that can solve this problem, or you're the best fit for them. But if your unique selling proposition is convenience, then you're basically a slave to everybody else's whims. So I would first challenge you to really think about, is this really best serving them? It's like a doctor. If you go to a doctor and they give you a pill for fat loss because it's more convenient, the doctor could very easily say, well, I just think it's the best way to serve them because they actually do it. Whereas the best way to serve them would be to help them develop better habits. So you really have to decide why, if you're swimming upstream, you're not great at showing up at 8, but you're doing it anyway. Is it because you get more viewership? Is it because it's more convenient and you like the positive feedback of the convenience? Is it really serving them best? No. Is giving people what is convenient for them serving them best? Almost never is that the case. And then yeah, you can, I would personally build my just like Laurel has, I would build my schedule around how I show up best, and then I would educate everybody else as to why. And as consumers of what most people here are selling, they should appreciate that, because ultimately, is that not a version of what they're after? Are they not paying you so that they can improve the quality of their life? So it's a little it's a little disingenuous to sell improving the quality of your life and deliver in a way that hurts the quality of your life. You're being a little hypocritical, right? So that kind of alignment, and I'm over explaining this because this is all language that you could use in a campaign. See, I realized I was showing up at 8. I hate showing up at 8. I'm telling you guys how to have a better life, and I'm making bad decisions. So I do calls at this time. Replays are available, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll probably have I think we have a campaign for that we could share the next couple of days.
Yeah, so as a follow-up, Claire just asked, as a follow-up for ongoing membership enrollment, what criteria did you use to determine the frequency of these rhythms so it doesn't become stale or expected? I was thinking to have different personal rhythm reasons during holidays.
Yeah, I would. So again, if you think of them as ace cards, uh, it's like an ace card in your back pocket, right? And you know the card game War. Say we're playing War. Laurel and I are playing War, and I have some magical ability to pull whatever card I want, and she slaps down a 2. What do I want to beat the 2 with? A 3, right? Because now my deck has higher value cards. So if she throws down a 2 and I beat it with a king or an ace, that's a king or an ace that now goes to the bottom of the stack. I can't use it for a while. So that's the first thing is if you can cover your cash flow needs without pulling an ace card, then I recommend doing that. The second one is the more personal it is, the less you have to worry about what you asked. Meaning, if you tell stories about your personal life, like if Laurel says, "Hey, look, I don't work after 2, and so I do things like this," people get engaged with her story, and they'll want more communications from you. They'll like it's not a bad thing. So if you can turn, to your point, if you could turn a Black Friday thing or a Christmas thing into a you thing with a Christmas theme, you could do it almost unlimited. I don't recommend it, but there's people. If you look at Ben Settle, I used to have one. I used to send a daily email. Sometimes I'd send 3 emails in a day, and our open rates would be 70 or 80%. So you're okay with frequency as long as they're very natural deadlines, and the more your personality is in them, the more frequently you can send because you're just kind of hanging out. You're not pitching stuff.
And I think the main thing that we have to remember too, guys, is these are cash flow now campaigns. These are not ongoing campaigns that you want to run year round, right? You have to have another way to generate your income. This is just for like kind of more like a cash flow infusion type thing. This is not something that you want to do on a this is not the campaigns to run as an ongoing thing. Does that make sense? So we still have to have, right? Like, so this is like to produce like more of an infusion. It's not to carry your business throughout the entire year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good point. You there's 2 things going on. One is your system of client acquisition, and that needs to be, you run, let's say, Laurel's ad strategy, messenger conversation, phone call or no phone call, whatever, close, webinars, whatever. All that needs to be ongoing. So if you think about a cash now campaign and you think about uh or if you're building your business and you know it's going, it's moving along, and then boom, you get hit with an unexpected hospital bill. Right? Do you have the means to quickly generate 10 grand, 100 grand, 50 grand? And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about setting it up so that when it's needed, you just push a button versus running these campaigns all the time.
Let's see. Trish says, I teach horse riders how to train their own horse with online courses. Oh, do you know Petra? Petra does something very similar. You guys should be friends if you guys don't know each other. I just went through and figured out the value of each of my courses based on if I was teaching it in person, and I have seriously undervalued most of my courses, many of which are DIY, and I'm planning to increase, but was also planning to give them notice of the price increase so that they can get it now. I'm still not sure what would be a good reason. Well, there's probably a reason why you're increasing the price. Maybe it's because, like, so for instance, right? Oh, perfect example, right? How many of you guys know that whenever I first started Lean on Laurel, it was $197 a month? $197 a month, right? Every time, like the first time that I did $197 a month, we had, Nick, what was it, like 70 or 80 people like on the waiting list because I capped it at 100 people. And Nick's like, well, now it's time to raise your price, right? And so the reason that I was raising my price was to get people into the program faster. Right. And so it was because the waiting list kept getting fuller and fuller and fuller to where now I had to raise it all the way up to, $1,500 a month. But that was a series of over 5.5 years of raising the price. But every reason was, hey, the wait list is getting too long. And so in order to bring people in faster, we're increasing the price. Right. And whenever we increased the price for the last time, it was because it was switching from a group program to a one-on-one, but also because the waiting list kept getting bigger. And so like anytime that I'm doing a price increase, I'm always being transparent as to why it's increased in price. Does that make sense? But I always grandfather my people in, right? There's some people that are still not going to mention any names because y'all hate on these people in the workshop that are still in at $197 a month for Lean on Laurel, right? But always like be transparent. Like that's like what Nick is just saying, like the whole personal things. I'm just realizing now how much I actually use these personal rhythms in my marketing without even realizing it until like just now as we're talking this out.
Yeah, keep in mind, I not for this exercise. Don't do this over the next 2 days, but once you develop the skill of identifying these deadlines and communicating them to generate cash, for certain things that are personal rhythm related, because I want to, is a good enough reason. Like, there's no natural deadline. So what I would look at, if you do this exercise, so what you'll see is many of these questions will answer themselves. If you do the exercise and you write out all of the natural deadlines you could possibly think of using the 4 rhythms, I'm willing to bet that in that list, you will find a good reason and a good deadline to explain why you're raising the price and why there's a deadline on it. So that's what I would do, is I would list it all out and we can workshop through it tomorrow or Wednesday. I have to think about which campaign, because we're going to teach a couple campaigns that are plug and play. But hopefully that makes sense. If you have the list of deadlines, then you're not stuck here going, oh gosh, what is the, you just pull out your list. You're like, oh shit, well, that one's in a couple days. And then you just think about how to tie them together. So yeah, make your list of deadlines. Courses are the hardest thing. Courses are the hardest thing. If we're just talking about a course, Laurel's story is a little bit different because it's live access to her. So courses, generally speaking, anything that is digital and archived and has very little cost to reproduce, it's much harder because the audience doesn't understand. Like if I say, hey, look, Laurel and I are doing an event in Phoenix tomorrow, then everybody immediately understands if they're not here tomorrow, they don't get to show up another day and get the event. But with a course, the audience has a difficult time understanding why they can't get it tomorrow or the day after or the day after at the same price. So courses can be tricky.
I think you do such a good job though of like, I think Nixmas is a great example of the way to sell a course and create scarcity at the same time. Wouldn't you think, Nick?
Yeah, that's why I do it the way that I do it. I'm fortunate that my birthday is so close to Christmas and New Year's that I can combine them all into a giant natural deadline. So Nixmas is the 3 or 4 days after my birthday have been the most profitable days of the year every year for like 5 years now.
But I love the way that you're like, yeah, you can't get it unless you like come to the class. Like there, you can't buy Nixmas. Like you just have to do it when you do it.
Yeah. And I'll give you guys an example of, so the last time I did a campaign for Nixmas, and hopefully this is okay to share, but last time we did a campaign for Nixmas, we did almost $6 million in sales the following week off of Nixmas. Now, here is the campaign for Nick Smith, which is very, very simple. I set up a 12 days of Christmas campaign that it would have had a start, I think, on the 16th for the 12th day to be on Christmas, or the 17th or whatever. And it was on like the 20th or the 21st. I remembered, oh shit, I was supposed to start that 12 days of Christmas campaign, but it's too late. Just so happens that my birthday was at 12 days after I realized I forgot to do the campaign. So I shifted it to 12 days of Nixmas, and instead of selling you stuff, I'm just going to give away as much as I can, but you got to be there live. If you're not there live, F you. That was the campaign. And then I went live for 12 days in a row. But you see how I just explained what happened. I was going to do 12 days of Christmas. I totally forgot. I was 3 days late. Fortunately, my birthday is 3 days after Christmas. So this is what I'm doing. And I don't feel like doing automations and emails. That's my personal rhythm, right? It's the end of the year. I don't want to do all that crap. So you're either there live or you're not. I'm not going to send emails and all that stuff. So I told them all of that. And that was the campaign. And then I went live for 12 days. There was no emails. I didn't even do messenger conversations, which I would recommend doing. And that was almost a $6 million campaign. So hopefully you guys can kind of see how you can, if you get all your deadlines, you can start mixing and matching. Maybe your birthday falls right around Halloween. Maybe your anniversary is on Valentine's Day. And you start combining these things to give people really compelling reasons. But you didn't make it up. You didn't make up your birthday. You didn't make up Valentine's Day. And that's a really important part of these campaigns, is that you don't make anything up in order. If I'm looking at your stuff, I'm thinking about buying, I don't want to feel rushed because you need more money right now. So all you have to do is give me a because other than it benefits you. And that's all we're doing, is we're saying, when you see a countdown timer, again, on a funnel, as a buyer, that's a fake countdown. You could probably buy it tomorrow at the same price. So there's no compelling reason. It just feels like you're being deceptive. So we want to remove all that deception and give them very real reasons that they already understand. And then if we can work in, the more we can work in, hey, it's Christmas. And since I'm Jewish, which I'm not, but I'm Jewish, I don't celebrate Christmas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend all day on Christmas answering your questions for free. Like, that would be a natural deadline for somebody that doesn't celebrate Christmas. I'm going to spend all Christmas helping you for free. Why? Because I don't celebrate Christmas and I don't have anything else to do. So that would be a very good natural deadline. If anybody doesn't celebrate Christmas, I would use that one. Say, hey, I don't celebrate Christmas, but I love the holiday spirit, so I'm here to help.
So I'll give you guys some really great language. You guys want to hear how I literally went from $297 a month to $1,000 in Lean on Laurel? Do you guys want to hear the language that Nick gave me that was freaking genius on raising my price? So, and it was 100% true, but the way that, and this is why I wanted to bring Nick here, because his brain, like getting access to Nick's brain is freaking amazing. That's why I'm still here, 5.5 years later, and lucky that I get access to Nick anytime I want now. But I never forget. I was like, I am really worried about increasing my price, right? The waiting list was getting ridiculous. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm going from $297 to $1,000. Like, what the hell, right? That's a lot. That's a big jump. And so he was like, here's what you say. He's like, because it's absolutely true. He's like, let's add a little something that you might or might not want to do. And I was like, well, the one thing that I wish I could have access to is people's ad account. But here's what happened last time. And Nick's like, well, let's think about how you can actually do it in a way that's not going to drive you crazy. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to get access to students' ad accounts so that I can tag team their ads with them, right? And so he's like, here's what you say. He's like, hey, I'm enrolling people into Lean on Laurel. It is at a higher price, but here's the thing. The number one thing that most of you guys want from me is for me to have my eyes inside your ads manager. And so here's the deal. This is no longer going to be just a consulting program. It is going to be a hybrid of an agency model and a consulting model. So you will literally get my eyes inside your ads manager. But here's the deal. I am enrolling people next month for this specific offer, but here's the deal. I might not like having my eyes on your ads manager. I might decide after the I'm only committed for the next 90 days to deliver on this offer. I might not do this again because I might hate it. But you see how that was providing scarcity by just being honest and real. And I want to say Scott Perry was one of the first people to actually take me up on that offer. Because people did, like, if I didn't like it, people were like, oh shit, I better buy this now, because if she doesn't do it for the next 90 days, I would have missed out on getting Laurel to tag team my ads with me. And I thought that that language was just freaking brilliant because it's both transparent, honest, and it doesn't provide fake scarcity. So hopefully that's helpful for some of you guys who are struggling with language to use.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's a great example. Is what that is that's a personal rhythm. That's just recognizing in yourself. You guys ever if you're the type of person, which I am, and so is Laurel, so no judgment, but if you're the type of person that often realizes after starting something, man, I wish I wouldn't have done this, it sounded a lot better than it actually worked out, then the campaign that Laurel just shared would work really well for you. Hey, here's the thing about me. I start stuff and I finish everything I commit to. So, but oftentimes I realize the stuff I've started is not as enjoyable as I thought. So I'm doing 90-day sprints starting tomorrow. So I'm only obligated for 90 days. And if I really enjoy doing it, I'll do another 90-day enrollment. If not, I won't. And that's just a personal rhythm. That's you, Laurel being aware of herself and structuring a campaign around that level of awareness. And it does, people will buy. So part of it is go take your Colby score. If you don't know your Colby, go take your personality test, reflect back on your personality. You can build campaigns around your unique disposition, but you have to draw a line in the sand where Laurel was saying, I'm going to be honest. And this is where most people are afraid to do it. She says, I'm going to be honest. I think I'm going to love this. I think it'll be really effective, but I could be wrong. So I'm committing 90 days. And if you're in the first cohort, you have my undivided attention for 90 days. I have no idea what's going to happen after that. So she's also setting herself up with Allegiance Capital, meaning if she did cancel it after 90 days, she is doing exactly what she told her audience she would do. If she continues it after 90 days, she's doing exactly what she told her audience would do. So every time you run a campaign and it's true and transparent, even the people that don't buy are watching and they're going, shit, she did exactly what she said she would do. And if they see that 1, 2, 3, 4 times, what they learn is Laurel does what she says she's going to do. And that's where you get if you ever seen the Laurel make a post and then, it's got 300 comments and people are buying everything. That's a byproduct of learning to articulate your natural deadlines and then structuring your offers around those campaigns and doing what you said you're going to do. And if you run a few of them, generally what happens is so the really powerful thing about Cash Now campaigns, if you do them the way that what we break down tomorrow, people start buying shit early because inevitably a large number of people are going to miss that first deadline for whatever reason. They're not sure, they forget, they don't have the money right now. And if they miss that first deadline and it was real and they regret missing it, they will never miss another one. In fact, they will start buying stuff before there's even a deadline announced. So it's kind of a whole, to Laurel's, it's like Laurel's flywheel concept. it's not it's a one-off campaign, but it fits into the system in a way that increases your ad spend and your regular sales process. See,
Yeah.
Anna says, I missed the blitz. Yep.
Yeah, like Pat actually just asked the question, Laurel, what was the reason you sold this program by having us post first dibs and wait for messenger links? Exactly this, scarcity, right? Like there was only a certain amount of seats. And if you guys remember last Black Friday, I wanted to test this idea. And this is another thing Nick and I talked about because we were trying to figure out what's the perfect transition to help people between, the $7 program and Lean on Laurel, right? Because this kind of gives you an idea of what it's like to be in Lean on Laurel. And again, I posted it for Black Friday. I used it a deadline, right? And I was like, hey, who wants first dibs on my Black Friday offer for 50% off the Black Friday price? I had over 100 people buy before they even knew what the offer even was. Scared. It was like, because there's only a certain amount of seats here. There's like my Zoom room only holds 100 people. Because I don't want to buy the one that has the 500 people or whatever. I don't, like, so that's always a natural like deadline, is like my Zoom room only holds 100 people, right? And so that's the reason I do that, is because, and here's another reason why too, is I love having conversations with you guys who buy the Blitz in Messenger, because like I get all of this amazing feedback from people whenever I'm delivering links or delivering replays or whatever. And so it's just, it's funny because I think Jewel asked the question, have you guys ever had a session around working in alignment with your Kolbe scores? That's the reason why Nick and we do Success Circle completely live. That's the reason why Nick and I do these blitzes live. Him and I on our Kolbe score, Nick, I don't remember what yours is, but mine is 4398. So what do I have such a low score? So it's Fact Finder 4, Follow Through 3, Quick Start 9, and Implementer 8. Right? So I'm super high Quick Start, super high Implementer, super low Follow Through. That means I start a lot of shit and I don't finish it. So remember how a while ago I told you guys that this blitz right here is a byproduct of me doing a personal rhythm? That's why I do all of my stuff live. That's why a lot of the $7 program is recorded live. Because if I have to sit with that camera and I don't have a room full of people, I don't have a forcing function to get it done. And so that's part of me knowing myself. And that's why everything I do is live. So yeah, so that's the reason that like I always tell you guys, there's strategy behind everything that I do. Like everything that I do. But what is one thing that you guys notice that I center all of my marketing around? Having conversation with you guys, because that is like the lifeblood. And that's why like I'm able to do so many of these campaigns that we're going to talk about, is because I have just made it a daily habit to center my entire marketing around having conversations with you guys.
Yeah, we'll get you a copy of the R3 book. And the R3 book, I think it sells right now for $247. And we'll get you a digital copy for being here. And it has a list of all this stuff. But I want to go over the homework one more time. Because it's not heavy on implementation today, because we'll get way more done if you show up tomorrow with these lists. Okay. 1, list out your personal rhythms. So, I mean, go like surface level is we got birthday, we got anniversary, we got whatever your hobbies are, National Fishing Day, whatever your hobbies are. Like what are the things that make you, they're unique to you. Write out all of those, because tomorrow we're going to combine them and turn them into campaigns. Then you got your industry rhythms. And with these industry rhythms in particular, I recommend you do this. I'm going to use the tax deadline. So let's say April 15th that's the deadline, right? So you write down your industry rhythms, April 15th, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then here's the homework. Like the list is homework, but then I would say, okay, so if the tax deadline is April 15th, and if Nick and Laurel came to me and said, hey, shut down your business, we're going to give you $10 million for one-on-one if you give us the best support possible. So now we're your only client. We're partners. Say, hey, we want to be partners, but you're in charge of the tax and accounting and all that. Think to yourself, okay, so if Nick and Laurel were going to pay me for my services and they were my only client, or we're partners, so I want to maximize this, the deadline is on the 15th. That's the one everybody knows, but that's not when you start preparing. So what do you need to do a week before the 15th? What do you need to do 3 weeks before the 15th? How would you prepare us? Because every step, if you said, look, so on January 1, I would do this, and before the end of January, I would file this, and at the beginning of February, I think it was a good time to, boom, and then middle of February, we got to remember we're responsible now for reasonable comp. That's like a new thing. So you list out, you could pick the deadlines that are the most relevant to you right now, and you start building you back into the potential campaign. So if tax deadline's the 15th, everybody knows about that, but you know that what you can do for someone starts on January 1st, then that's when the campaign would start. So what you're doing, right, hopefully that makes sense, is you go your industry deadlines, and then think, if I had a billionaire client and I was getting paid a percentage of what I saved them, what would I do and when? And you'll when you go down that thought process, if you're like, okay, somebody's got a wedding, and you're a fitness coach, and they're like, I want to look the best I can look on this date. All right, well, then what do you have to do a month before that, a month before that? See, so the natural deadline helps us back in. The natural deadline is the reason, but we can back into the communications that happen before the deadline. So industry rhythm, make all of the industry rhythms that you can think of that are unique to your industry. Some you should know it pretty well. And again, if you don't know, you can look at your P&L and you'll see, like, anybody that has been in fitness for 5 years or more, I could pull their P&Ls and I know January is going to be their biggest month. It always is. So you could actually look at, you just pull your Stripe account or something, look at the graph, and you'll probably find patterns. And those patterns are industry rhythms combined with business rhythms. Meaning, obviously, if a fitness coach only takes a whole year up front, their January is going to look super inflated. Because not only do they have more enrollments, but they also collect all the money up front. Whereas if they do monthly recurring, it won't look as, you'll see a huge influx of new clients, but you won't see the same spike in revenue. Right. So that's just industry rhythms, business rhythms combined, and then make a list of your business rhythms. Now, business rhythms will be how you collect payment, one-time charge, recurring payments, all the stuff like that. How your program is structured, live every quarter, because that's what I want to do. Any decisions you make in your business that you could change. So make a list of those rhythms. Most common is when you do payroll. If you have a open cart, closed cart, then when you open cart. All those are business decisions. So you want to make a list of all of those rhythms. And then the easiest one is the pre-wired ideas. That's just the stuff that you say, oh, Thanksgiving's right around the corner. And everybody knows what you're talking about. Those are the easiest. They require no explanation. You say, hey, it's Thanksgiving. And what I feel like doing to show gratitude is I feel like doing free strategy sessions. Right? You don't have to explain why. You give them a little because, but you don't have to explain Thanksgiving to them. So you want a list of all of those. And I would put a ton of time into go absurd, like get crazy with it. And that list will be the list that we pull from when we start crafting campaigns tomorrow.
Yep. And I'm going to email out the book, the R3 book, and the latest version. I think, Fola, you're going to enjoy this because I know you asked about the email open sequence. why it's like 70%. Ours is actually, I think, 85%, isn't it, Nick? And so he actually gives an example and actually walks through in the R3 book our 85% open rate.
Yeah. And what I do on emails, I'll just tell you guys this. So get the book and review it. Our emails, I think the very first email on average gets about 80 something percent open rate. The second email is high 70s, 78, 79%. But then every subsequent email, the open rates go up. So which is unheard of, right? So by the seventh email in the sequence, you get like 93% open rate or something crazy. Because it's the same principles. It's just the same. We're utilizing natural deadlines. We're utilizing compelling reasons why that are real. And it's all broken down in the book. But the R3 book explains how to take the Cash Now campaign concepts and turn it into a more evergreen system.
And it pairs really well because a lot of you guys were like, well, what's the Nick Smith strategy? And I hope that you guys are starting to realize there's two main components, right? You have to be able to, one, generate leads, whether it's through an invisible list, right? Like I teach you guys in the 7L program, whether it's having messenger conversations, whether it is getting email addresses, whether it is podcasts, however it is that you want to generate, right? Do live events, right? That was like one of my very first, whenever I lived in Phoenix and I didn't have the online thing, I did live events for small business owners. You have to be able to generate leads. Like that's the thing. And then just continuously show up and give value. Those are the two components that make like, yeah, because everyone's like, oh, well, Nick did a 12-day workshop and then sold a $40,000 program on the other end of it without a phone call, without a messenger conversation. How did he do that? Through something that you're going to see in the R3 book. It's called Allegiance Capital. And Allegiance Capital, it is literally the backbone of my entire ecosystem. And so the R3 book, for those of you guys who are familiar with my ecosystem, which you should be, right? Because all of you guys should be in the $7 program. The R3 book is going to be a perfect companion so that you guys can actually see the principles of which I've built that ads ecosystem around. So hopefully you guys are enjoying, hopefully you guys are going to enjoy the 3-day blitz. Sorry, Nick, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're all right. I carry on. Hopefully you enjoy the 3-day blitz.
Yeah, hopefully you guys are going to enjoy the 3-day blitz, and hopefully you guys are going to start to see that what we do is a lot different, right? Because how many of you guys like are already like the workshop was not exactly what you were expecting, right? We do things a little bit differently. And so, but our main goal over the next 3 days is exactly what I said at the very beginning, is we hope that you guys are going to leave the 3 days being in a better position than you were whenever you first started. And so we're going to gift you guys the R3 book, like, and we're not kidding. It does sell for like $200. I know, cause I run the ads to it. So it's not something that, we just typically give away. Usually the only people that get it are the people in our success circle, mastermind. And so, that's very generous, Nick. Thank you for gifting them R3. I've been reading R3 and every iteration, I think I probably have 4 or 5 iterations of it because Nick's been perfecting that book for like the last couple of years. And the last version is really freaking good. Like I got it, and I'm lucky because I'm a subscriber of the letter and also a business partner. So obviously I got a physical copy of R3, but I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. And I think you guys are going to have a better understanding of why I've built my ecosystem the way that I have.
Yeah. Let me, and again, we're going to go heavy implementation tomorrow. I apologize. My internet still doesn't work, so we'll get it fixed by tomorrow, though. One thing about Nick Smith that I think is really important for perspective, because people ask all the time, how did you do that? Give me in the chat, if you're still here, how big do you think my email list was at the time? I'll wait for some guesses. So remember, we sold almost $6 million of a certification program right out the back. 6,270, 500, 500. You guys are close. My email list, I'm telling you this because people, the most common thing we get is we get people to say, I want better than average results. And then when you show them how to do it, they say, well, that's not what everybody else is doing. Like, well, you're not going to get above average results doing what everybody else is doing. By definition, you will get average results. So it's different, and everybody assumes, well, I'm not Nick. He's, because I mean, I've been showing up for a really long time. So you may think you don't have a list or an audience like I do. My email list at the time of Nicksmas 2021 was 428 people. 428 people. So whether your invisible audience, email list, Facebook followers, LinkedIn connections, or whatever is in the triple digits, like you got hundreds of people, you, in my opinion, should be working these campaigns. And people often wait until, well, I got to wait till I have a bigger audience. You don't. You have to continue to build your audience, but you don't need to wait until you have a bigger one to deploy these things, because if you do it the way we teach you tomorrow, running these campaigns will also have the pleasant byproduct of growing your audience more. Wanted to share that because that's the number one. Well, I don't have a list like Nick does. You probably do. I bet most people here have bigger lists than I do. But just very, very intentional about how we communicate with them.
I think this will be kind of cool, this last comment to end this call on. So Stefan just said those were 428 mad raving fans. R3 stands for retention, referrals, and raving fans. So if you're wondering what R3 stands for. So perfect comment to actually close on today's call. But I enjoyed spending my morning with you, Nick. By far, even though Nick gave this entire training like behind a phone, this is definitely one of the most valuable trainings that I've attended, like that Nick has done. That is just like, and every time I see Nick teach something, I'm at a different level in my business and it just hits different. And so for me personally, like this was awesome. So thank you, Nick, for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, looking forward to tomorrow. I will have my desktop hopefully functioning, and we'll go through come tomorrow. If you're still here, you have the advantage of hearing this like 5 times now. Come tomorrow with your lists. Laurel, I'll make lists. Laurel's going to make lists. You're going to watch us build our campaigns live. We'll help you. And frankly, if you don't have your rhythms down, we have no real natural deadlines, and we can't build any campaigns. So that's the homework. Build these lists. Think about your buckets. You don't have to build anything, but you want to start thinking about the buckets as well. Good fit now. What makes somebody a good fit now? What makes somebody a good fit, but maybe not right now? And then what makes somebody not a good fit? So just think on those things while you make your lists of natural deadlines.
Hi guys. Like I said, look for an email from me later on today. If you don't have an email from me, just send me a DM. It might have, sometimes Kartra doesn't deliver quite right, but you guys should have an email from me shortly. So I will send out the book and yeah, and then we'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right, see you tomorrow.